All right, so afternoon, everyone. Today's panel is about AI data sovereignty. So as AI systems consume more and more data, the core question is who owns it, who controls the access, and who actually benefits at the end of the day. So right now, much of that value is actually captured by large centralized platforms, and the promise of Web3 is to flip that script, giving individuals and creators greater control and ideally a fairer share of the upside. So in this session, we're going to explore four angles, with first being the main barriers to progress, how marketplaces can be designed, as well as the economic models that actually make sense in this AI age. And finally, we're going to wrap it up with what infrastructure is still missing to make the data sovereignty problem real. So, I'm Eddie. Today I'm joined by Chris from Ava Labs, Min from Moss, so she just gave an awesome presentation earlier, and Abhi from HETU. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. So I'm going to start off with the first question of what do you guys think is the biggest roadblock to real data sovereignty today? Is it the technology, the law, or is it the big tech's monopoly on these proprietary models?
Should I start?
Go for it, Chris.
Are we doing intros as well? All right.
Of course.
So hey guys, my name is Chris. I'm at Ava Labs, primarily focusing on AI and DeepIn, doing BD and ecosystem growth. So as you know, Avalanche is a chain of many chains where anyone can go in and launch their own L1, almost like AWS. It's very easy to bootstrap and get your validators up and running for your purpose-built blockchain. Nowadays, everyone is trying to build a general purpose blockchain. It doesn't really work. Few exceptions such as Hyperliquid, that's probably the only recent successful one. But nowadays, if you're a big institution, if you're a big company with a lot of users, a lot of money, you need your own purpose-built blockchain for your use case, your jurisdiction, your customers, your clients. So yeah, to go into the question, I think the limitation today in terms of data ownership would be hardware. I think, for example, ZK technology is the biggest use case that we have in terms of how can we obviously prove something on chain, but also giving up a lot of valuable information without, giving up your privacy. I think the fastest ZK proof today is 18 minutes, right? In terms of blockchain. That's obviously very bad, but the technology works. We're limited by hardware. Over time, the hardware will get better, and then the throughput with ZK is going to become milliseconds. It's going to become faster, and then we're really going to develop that what I like to call the Web3 cookie, right? Today on Web2, everything is tracked with you with the cookie, so that's how you get targeted ads, you get personalized shopping experiences, but it's very, very invasive. It's good. It's a good technology. We enjoy it. It's beneficial to us, but it's very invasive, and big corporations are making money off of us. When ZK technology advances, right, someone is going to come in and invent that sort of technology, which I call the Web3 cookie, where your data follows you everywhere you go online and you retain it. So wherever you're transacting on blockchain, it's going to stay with you. And when that happens, we're really going to see true data sovereignty.
Hello, me again. Yeah, I'm Min, so I'm building Moss. Moss is an AI-powered alpha and trading aggregator. So I've given a lot of introduction on Moss, so I just go straight to the question. I think my perspective will be more from an application builder side. So I think the biggest roadblock in the data sovereignty is probably about the user incentive and also operational efficiency. So about user incentives, right? So how do we actually incentivize users to, just upload all this data and then claim that ownership? While a lot of I would say massive users they're so used to the Web2 kind of data, so they just use all the product and they didn't even realize that their data is being exploited by all those centralized Web2 companies, right? So how do we educate people about data sovereignty, and how do we actually incentivize them, to claim that data ownership? So I think that's one very important roadblocks all of us need to solve. And then the other one is about operational efficiency. So our application is built on all those data, right? We use the Twitter API to get the Twitter data. We use a lot of the on-chain data analytics API to get all those on-chain data, and also like blockchain. Now it's all like API driven. It's all data from all those centralized companies because the data is available. So if it's like coming from all those like users, then the operational efficiency lies in how do we aggregate the data and how do we like analyze it and actually like extract the insights from it. So that's a lot of like operational details in it. And then like for an application builder, I like it's we are an app built for crypto users. We definitely want to build on all those like decentralized infrastructure and also data that owned by user. But then there will be a lot of like challenges for us to actually use the data. So yeah, that's fine.
Hi guys, I'm Abhi. I'm heading the research group at Hetu. So we are like more of an academic turn into trying to make a framework. So we are just trying to tap into the field where the future value is going to be generated by the data that we can have a, how you say, like if we want to control it, we should be able to control it. So back in the days, we had sort of no choice, no platforms, no incentives, no knowledge. Hey, your data is valued at this much or that much. So back in the early days, all those social media companies, e-commerce, they came in, they used our data, and they sort of give us this free experience. It was not free at the end of the day. So if you look backwards, so they were actually sort of using this MEV in their own way to extract the value out of us. So I think now the challenge becomes in data sovereignty is, I mean, I don't know what else to say because the most of the parts are covered by my co-panelists. I think to put it in more technical terms, I'll say that we have some bits and pieces like we have ZK, we have FHE. We can have like a soft framework right now, but we do not have like an end-to-end market for it. For instance, companies like Vana, they are pulling the user data and they're making sure that, hey, someone who wants to use this data, they're going to follow some sort of framework. And if you go through this framework, you're going to get something out of it. Meaning the data owners will be paid substantially for that. But again, the thing is, the scope of this whole industry right now is so narrowed down that we are constrained by not only technical but also the ecosystem part. So I think this is why outside you will see a lot of developers saying that, hey, where I can approach this problem. So I think the sovereignty is sort of a two-edged sword because we are so accustomed to the convenience of Web 2, and it's going to take a lot of effort to train users to realize the value of Web 3 at the same time for the developers to make sure that the experience from this transformation should be like behind the walls.
Yeah, thank you so much for your detailed answers, folks. It seems like it's a very nuanced and difficult problem to be solved. So the second question I have for you guys is, if we build data marketplaces, how do we actually keep privacy without losing transparency? Does anyone want to take a jab at it first?
So how do we
keep privacy without actually losing the transparency?
Yeah, of course. I'll give one example really quick. So, well, in terms of data, right, I don't want to repeat myself and say ZK again because that's the obvious choice. I mean, I'll kind of turn it a little. I don't know if you've ever heard of EERC before, encrypted ERC tokens before. I think that technology is a step in the right direction in terms of preserving privacy while transacting on-chain. Because everything on-chain is I guess it's foreseeable, right? You can look into every single transaction. I think if you go on Nansen right now, Nansen's indexed, 500 million wallets. wallets, and almost every single one of them is identifiable. Like you most likely know whose wallet it is if you look it up. Manson is a really powerful tool, by the way. Um, but in terms of EERC, right, now you can start paying your clients, you can start paying your employees, your contractors on payroll, on chain, while still being able to fork over the private keys to auditors to ensure that you are compliant in a certain jurisdiction. I think something like that is very important in terms of preserving privacy and data while still transacting on blockchain. Data specifically is a little harder just because of how expensive it is to pull big data out from traditional cloud, right? Because nowadays you can't really train models on blockchain; it just doesn't make sense. If you want to train models, your data most likely lives in an S3 bucket or a Google bucket. But there are tools nowadays where, for example, a Cofounder Cloud, if you've ever heard of them, they're building multiple blockchains for decentralized storage, and they are directly Snowflake compatible. So what that means is if your data lives in the United States and you work with the government, now you can't pull that data out on an L1 that probably lives in Europe. So then there's another L1 that lives in Europe as well. So there's just tools like that that ensure you can be compliant, you can be kind of auditable while still preserving privacy.
Yeah, I think like Chris has already like very well covered because I don't think I have like too many insights on building a, a data marketplace. I'm an application builder, right? So but what I would like care about like when using all those like data marketplace is the cost. So I'm very practical. Like if the data coming from all these like marketplace, they are kind of like cheaper, then it's like considerable, right? But I do think that's achievable because we've seen a lot of like the Web3 data company and protocols. They're basically using the label to earn kind of mechanisms to incentivize the users. So it will, if you're not considering the token price, you're only considering in terms of like stablecoin, it's cheaper. Um, but then that comes like the quality of the data. So yeah, that's probably just like the point I want to highlight, like from a data user perspective.
Yeah, so I think I'll try and give some a bit different answer from the protocol designer perspective. So basically, you have a whole bunch of options these days. You can go for like a AE, FHE, with a bunch of mix and matching solutions. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the cost and how well your application should maintain a balance between the privacy and user experience. I think it works pretty well for if you're taking a model from the bottom up because you're not interacting with the user in that real-time sense. So you can just pull a whole bunch of data, pull it out, put it back in once you're done. So I think like talking from an application side, it's a bit more challenging than for example, passively putting data, post processing it, things like that. But then there also it's like a new paradigm that we're entering right now because most of the data from now will also be produced by, for example, collaborative agentic use cases where you input your query and you have no idea how many agents are going to process it before you get it from the output. So, stating from this infrastructure standpoint, having the protocols to actually churn out the most complicated use cases for you are not there yet. And we're not just talking about decentralized financial data, which is a bit more easier to process, but we are talking about like magnitudes of higher data. Plus, on top, we have Web2 to compute with. So it's like whatever Web2 is doing, Web3 is doing at least a magnitude slower than privacy guarantees. Okay, all these platforms can give you certain level of guarantees, but then the monitoring aspect of it comes into the picture. For example, Apple says, hey, we're not giving your data to advertisers, But can we use your data? Okay, we'll not see your data, but we will use differential privacy to process your data, or how to say, extract the main juice out of it. So it's the same thing, but again, it's not the same thing if you look from the user's incentivization process. So you have to pick your poison for now, but moving forward, I think the path will be easier for sure.
All right, so great answers. It does seem like there is a trade-off between privacy, user experience, and cost. Hopefully, in the future, as you say, right, we will be able to capture all of these things well. Moving onwards, what models actually allow people to earn from their data without actually giving up control right now? Does anyone have any thoughts there?
There's a couple of them that I can think of. So I'll use two examples here. So there's Grass and there's Teneo. Both are basically web browser extensions where you can basically give up, I wouldn't say give up, but it's a kind of a Web3 model where you are personalizing your browser experience in exchange for tokens. What that means is you are personalizing your exact experience and feeding kind of the master hive mind into, which is decentralized. So it comes in, so it starts at the bottom, comes into the top, gets mixed in. So on the way in, you're not really targeted, if that makes sense, right? All you're doing is feeding more data to kind of like a master cloud that lives on blockchain. Some of those models are on Web 2, so they're not really privacy preserving. You don't know what AWS or Google or OCI is doing with your data, which is what I said before. You need more efficient data processing and data pipeline solutions. So anytime you see Snowflake compatible decentralized storage solutions, I highly recommend you use those rather than traditional kind of storage solutions. But those are a couple models where I think it's a step in the right direction to where you can make money passively while doing things that you do every day.
I think I want to provide a perspective from the Moss use case. Right? So we are using AI to help people trade smarter. So we deliver all those like alpha alerts and signals. But one important feedback I get from my users is that there are a lot of traders, and the profiles are different. Some will only trade perps, long short, it's an exciting game. Some will only trade Bitcoins because they think that's where you can get 100x. And some only trade like Bitcoin ETH, right? So there are different like traders. And from the Moss perspective, we're thinking about how to give more personalized hybrid signal. Then that will involve the analyzing of the user data. So for now, it's mostly from Twitter, right? You can log in Moss using your X account. But once we plug in all those like modular infrastructure, you can actually like trade, and then Moss will learn like how you usually trade. And then we will have like much more detailed segmentation of all those like user trader profiles. And then I think to further let our users enjoy the personalization of data and analysis is number one, you can get more personalized trading signals that especially made for you, so it's quite useful. Second, we'll also like help our users make their own profile NFTs. So with that NFT, all your data is logged in, all the profile is logged on chain, and then the NFT definitely will have some kind of a value. So that's also like one way we can share, the economic value generated from the personalization. So that's actually in our roadmap, and then we're working towards that.
So you can please repeat the question again?
Yeah, sure. So the question is, what models actually let people earn from their data without giving up control? And specifically, we can think about, for example, allowing creators and individuals to monetize their data without relinquishing control of their digital information, for example?
Okay, so I think there are certain models upcoming. For example, if you look at the ERC 8004, so what they're doing is they are tagging sort of the entity which is generating data, and that entity can so all the processing or all the data that that entity has generated, so it can be like anchored to Ethereum chain. So using this, it's sort of a model which is like a bit transparent on the one side because you are having data which is being stored somewhere through an application, and your identity is tied to a variable. So that is one part of it. Super simple, and all the model that will actually take you back some incentive, they can do it like this. There are some other examples. For example, this zero G has this INFT. They say like I think the number ERC 784757. So it does exactly the same thing. You are locked in inside a system, and all the activities that you do, they are tied to again an identity. So the common denominator here is the identity-based models. So it has abstracted away the processing part. So whether you are doing it off-chain or on-chain, it doesn't really matter. So it's up to the applications or type of use case that you are dealing with. Uh, I think what we are doing at Hetu is a bit more advanced version of it, meaning that okay, you are interacting with a lot of agents, and those agents are collaborating to a task. And so what's going to happen is at the end of the day, you get a decentralized knowledge graph. So this is again a type of data, right? Highly contextual plus causal. What you can do is simply give it to a data pool, and those guys will run like causal inference algorithms, and you have something like this.
Okay, thank you for your answer, everyone. So for the last question we're going to explore today is looking ahead, what is one critical missing piece of infrastructure to make everything we talked about today true?
Your turn to start.
All right, last one, so I'm going to try the last question. So I think missing piece, what is that?
Missing piece of infrastructure. So, for example, is it a specialized Oracle service, a new compute primitive, or a data indexing protocol, right? So it's like really what is the most essential for verifying integrity as well as provenance of AI models built on the sovereign data we actually talked about today.
I think apart from indexing problem, because it has been sort of solved in Web3, like we have graph protocols that does the same, brilliantly. I think coming from the infrastructure standpoint, I think decentralized training is one thing that we are doing currently, but it is very slower in comparison to Web2. So I would like to first see this gap closing down. Like we can use TEs to your H100 and 200 to train foundational models and stuff. Second thing which I would like to see in future is agentic launchpads, but without vendor locking. For example, most of the launchpads in Web3 right now, they sort of tell you that, hey, they're like AWS of their own ecosystem, meaning launch everything on us, and then we're gonna give sort of this data control for you. So this piece needs to be decentralized, because then there will be no difference between agentic launchpads in Web3 and Web2. Because in Web2, LangGraph, Phoenix are doing exactly the same thing. You just have the advantage of, for example, your agentic ID, that's it. So if someone can close this gap, I think it will be a huge win.
From an application builder perspective, what's missing? I would say everything. So it's not that. I think it's just that everything can be better. I think like a lot of the infrastructures are there, like decentralized compute, and then decentralized data, and then decentralized like everything, right? A lot of projects and a lot of founders are working on that. I think they're very good, very great visions. But it's just like from for an application to actually use the infrastructure. For now, like I'm still using some of the centralized providers. Like for compute, I'm using AWS, Tencent Cloud. Like for the data, I'm actually like partnering with some data on-chain data analytics companies, right? They still like do a lot of like labeling, indexing in order to make the data usable. So I would say like we're still early, but I think a lot of good teams are already working on that. So I will, at the same time, I think I would just like people will just like wait and see. But for us, like applications, we'll just like use whatever there is, to build a product, for to help people. So that's our vision.
Do you know what we're missing? We're not missing any hardware or infrastructure. We're missing a good interface. So today, what's the biggest use case for AI and blockchain? AI and DeFi, right? Agents that make it easy to transact on the blockchain. Well, if I go and tell my friend today, go borrow money on Aave, he's gonna look at me and be like, well, what is Aave, a fruit? There's no entrance right now for the regular user to come in and use blockchain. Good luck. Someone has to come and use AI or build an interface that uses AI and kind of centralizes these applications into one interface where I don't care what Benki is, I don't care what Euler is, I don't care what Aave is. We all have to know what that is for us to even use AI in DeFi. I think we're at the point where the technology is ready, but no one has mastered the interface to where it's so seamless that you can tell your mom or dad to start using it, right? Look at Robinhood, right? I think all of our boomers in our lives use Robinhood. It's so easy to use. Why don't we have something like that in blockchain? If someone is going to invent something like that, tell me. I'll invest into you, please. But I realistically think when we solve that barrier, I think the tech is ready. I think the tech is ready. I think the infrastructure is ready. We have all of the tools. We have all of the blockchains we need. It's so easy to spin up a dApp, a blockchain, an L1, an L2. We just need that that next step of innovation. Amazing. All of us. Let's do it.
All right, so this concludes this panel discussion. We covered some very interesting topics and got the thoughts of our panelists here on the challenges of breaking big tech's grip on models, balancing privacy with transparency, designing fair data sharing models, and what we're actually missing from a infrastructure standpoint. So let's give a big round of applause to the panelists here. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and thank you guys for listening in.